Something has been bothering me about RuneScape 3, and it's something I've spoken a lot about on stream, link in the description by the way, but I feel like RS3 is a bit too proud about what they do, which, let's be honest, in some cases is absolutely okay, but sometimes it's not. But that is kind of a different subject altogether. I mean too proud to copy the homework of old school RuneScape. Now I don't want this video to turn into a OSRS versus RS3 debate, which one is better, yada yada yada. No, this is more about simple, rational, and quite frankly, obvious observations on what is happening between both the games and even things that Jagex said themselves. Because OSRS does copy certain things from RS3 that work, usually they give it their own spin, but their core design stays the same. Don't fix it if it ain't broke, right? You know what might break, however? My heart, if you don't like this video and subscribe, as we're still trying to get to 10k subscribers by the end of 2025, and yes, these little plugs get stranger with every single video. Anyway, so what exactly am I talking about? Because if you have more than 2 brain cells, you can think of the reason why OSRS would take things from RuneScape 3, as most of the natural progression of that game, when it comes to storyline, certain piece of content like Soul Wars, Next or Shooting Stars, lay within the time frame of the original save state of old school, so 2007. But not only pre-existing pieces of content like Soul Wars or While Gothic Sleeps see their way into old school RuneScape, Shamanism, as a skill pitched alongside of scaling, is pretty much invention but slightly different to fit OSRS. Sure, it didn't make it into the game, but it was quite popular and people would argue that it should have made its way into the game over the meme that is sailing. A better example would probably be the Phosani's Nightmare, which takes a lot of ideas from Next AOD in its mechanics, and AOD is a boss released nearly 10 years after the OSRS save state. My point here is, if something is good from RS3, old school isn't afraid to adapt it. But the other way around, well, seems to be a lot different. I don't know if it's necessarily pride or maybe the lack of capability to do so, but RS3 never seems to be able to do it right, at least in my opinion. Take the Shooting Star refresh as an example. On socials, they were talking about how they wanted to refresh it and make it popular again like OSRS. Fair enough. It's a cool social way to train mining, and don't get me wrong, it's decently popular in RS3, but mainly for people going for trim comp, as it is a requirement. It's also a little bit less accessible because, if you aren't aware, stars don't spawn on random worlds at all times like an old school RuneScape, but instead they spawn in waves every 2 hours, which if you can't make it, you're screwed. Plus, yet another timer-based activity in RuneScape 3, which they really need to stop doing because I hate to have to do things at a specific time. Just let me do it whenever the hell I want to. Anyway, in my opinion, if they really wanted to make it as popular as old school RuneScape, they should have just copied their homework. It's an AFK, mediocre experience rate, trading method that is accessible at all times on random worlds. That is what made it so successful. Instead, RS3 went for AFK, good experience, but you can only do it every other hour and 3 times a day? Yeah, makes no sense to me. Another great example is the Gate of Elitness, the second skilling boss in RuneScape 3. Yet again, something they talked about how they wanted to make it more like an old school RuneScape skilling boss, where it is actually a decent trading method and kind of a social experience.
The Gate of Elitness will be a great way to level up your skills in an exciting, fast-paced environment.
You'll be able to tackle the Gate of Elitness solo or as a group of up to 10 players.
It's okay for divination experience, it's actually pretty good to be honest, but the other skills kind of suck there. I mean, I'm aware of the crafting method that's there, for Iron Man especially, where you just cut the crystals at the side, but that's kind of unintended at the same time as well, so I don't really count it. And to be honest, let's be real here, it's kind of worse to do with friends, so there's no point in the social aspect of it. Why not look at the design of a boss like Wintertodt and do something similar to that? It's not the world's best boss, but let's be honest, it's social and quite relaxing to do for good experience rate and reward. What I'm trying to say here is that RuneScape 3 wants to reinvent the wheel instead of looking at what works. Sure, they are 2 different games, but time and time again, when something releases or an issue appears that isn't in old school RuneScape, like XP balancing between AFK, active and profitable skilling, RS3 seems to want to find their own solution. When in a lot of cases, I feel like looking over the fence at old school is what could be the solution. Like I said, Copy a boss like Wintertodt and make it a competitive training method that gives 80% of the best experience with some decent rewards. Or Temperos, a skilling boss that can both be done in masses and solo, depending on if you're looking for loot or experience. They don't have to copy and paste them, but at least make it similar in concept and core design. I mean, with both of these bosses, you can both play with level 50 people and 99 people without it hindering you. Imagine doing that at Croesus, like actually doing how Croesus is intended with 4 people, with someone with level 50 stats and then you with 99. Yeah, you don't want to do that. And the gate is even worse because it just scales up and the kills are way too long for what you pretty much are getting. The concept of how balancing works is another great example, and I will keep on banging on about it until something is done. In RS3, the AFK method seems to be near the best experience, but in reality, it should be like old school Runescape in my opinion. AFK is a decent option, but active skilling is by far the best way to train a skill. We don't need to tick manipulate, but at least make it worth my while and give me reward for doing it as well. Instead, in RuneScape 3, as soon as it's active, the method usually sucks like Whirligigs or Swarm Fishing, or they give too much money like Big Game Hunter, but poor experience rates. In old school RuneScape, the active profitable method sits between AFK experience rates and the full-on active training method, which is way better in my opinion because then it's a viable option to do. But instead, RS3 focuses on their skewed data that everyone does the AFK method. But let's be honest, they're usually some of the best methods regardless, or so close to them that the extra effort put into the active method doesn't outweigh the extra experience. Sure, some of you are probably sitting there like, Chef, if you have such issues with these things, go play old school RuneScape. But I've accepted this a long time ago and I play both games. But the fact RuneScape 3 themselves say that they want to make things more like old school RuneScape, maybe not directly, but pretty much if you read between the lines that's what they're saying with the Shooting Stars or the Gate release, but then fail to do so, makes me wonder what the reason for that is. Because the devs working on RS3 are very talented, so surely it's not incompetence. Instead, I feel like in those two cases, it has been, oh yeah, but we'll do it our own way, which, yet again, why? If there is a popular working version of it, copy it and adjust it slightly, and then you're done. It confused me, but maybe some of you guys can explain this phenomenon to me in the comment section down below. Leave a like in the video if you did enjoy it, subscribe if you're new, and my name's Chevalric. See you guys in my next video.